have been destroyed in these early rounds of the counteroffensive.
And so on the report that 16 vehicles were destroyed, I've seen the reports, but I can't corroborate some of the video and imagery coming out of that. So we're going to continue to monitor that, but I just wouldn't be able to confirm the reports that at least what we're seeing from Russians of putting out those imagery.
If those reports are true, does this line up with what the Pentagon was kind of planning for as far as losses?
Something that went into our calculations when we provide this equipment to the Ukrainians is that there could be battlefield losses and damages as the fight continues.
Now, certainly, the timing certainly seems to line up that the counteroffensive begins and suddenly you're providing armored vehicles again.
I'll let the Ukrainians speak to that.
It's like it's almost a joke. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Convo Couch. Let me get there.
Hoo-ah!
Wait, hold
Hoo-ah!
on. We need to do it right there. I am Pastor Jardula. As you can see, that handsome man next to me who wore the same type of tone shirt, but he's the only one sitting on the actual couch today, bringing the convo. Wyatt Reed is with us. How you doing there, Wyatt Reed?
I'm good, man. I got my Zelensky shirt on. I'm ready to cope.
The Zelensky shirt. That means you got nothing on underneath, right? So don't stand up. Please don't Zelensky us. That should be a thing. Don't be Zelenskying us. That's like a form of streaking with just a shirt on.
Wait till you see what I can do with the piano.
Oh, shit. Did you see the Trends Journal cover? Gerald Salente's outlet. It's like, I can play the piano with my penis, and it's a cartoon one with this nice big old head.
I missed that. No, we'll have to throw that up on the screen at some point.
Well, man, thank you for coming on this early kind of edition of the Combo Couch today. There's a lot of stuff going on, so we went to the bullpen. We moved some things around. There's an interview with Cornel West. He's going to be on RBN, so we didn't want to go on that and kind of overshadow that because we wouldn't overshadow anything. They would just we would have no audience. So we figured we go on before them, and after they're done, I'm going to do a special show with my good friend James Roguski. We're going to be talking about The Who. Let me bring it up for you guys really quickly because we can't, and unfortunately, we can't talk about that stuff on YouTube. So it's going to be on a Rockfin Rumble only. Let me share it really quick. You can see it right here. The Who is working in secrecy. Our good friend James Roguski. This guy has done great work. The World Health Organization. Some things we're going to talk about today might be coming into play when it comes to what is going on, but that will be at 4:00 today. That will be after the RBN interview. So come check us out. But thank you so much, Wyatt. Like I said, I called you late last night. I moved the show to make it early. You got up at the crack of noon. Wow. Thank you so much.
Man. Yeah, the sacrifices I make for this friendship, huh?
And that's what it is, right? Like we're colleagues, whatever. We do a little bit different work. You do some great writing. You're a journalist. I have a lot of shows. I'm a commentator, whatever. But we're also friends. We've been friends for quite some time since we were in Nicaragua together. That was when we first met, standing with the Sandinistas, watching their elections, a free, fair, transparent elections. It's amazing. We also joined forces in Honduras. We were at the Colombian election different times. Brazil, I don't know if you ever made it out there, but doing a lot of work with you. It's always been great because Fiorella always says that Wyatt speaks better Spanish than Johnny Mayorga, her brother.
Oh
just
my
to
God.
tease him, but
Why do you got to put me in the middle of these little family blood feuds?
because that's what we do, Wyatt. We put people uncomfortably in the middle, man. You know what I'm saying? You're playing Zelensky today. He's in the middle, right?
I'm right in the middle on the couch.
Playing the role and stuff today. So we saw that little video clip. Let's just jump right into it today. And by the way, it kind of sucks that we are here in the United States where a lot of our friends, Fiorella included, are in Venezuela right now at the Alex Saab event, talking in solidarity to free Alex Saab. We'll get some more information on that as it comes in. I think there's a stream going on. We'll try to share it later. But we're here in the States, and there's a lot of distractions. The campaign season's heating up with this whole situation. RFK, we've talked about him a little bit on the morning show. Cornel West is now throwing his hat into the ring. But as we're talking about all this stuff, the Trump indictments going on, the war still rages on in Ukraine, man. And I put it on the thumbnail today. When will it end? Will it ever end? You know what I'm saying? We already played this video, Cheese Slice. We're good on that one. We already played this video. But yeah, let's get to the next article, and we'll kind of talk. We'll bring it on up. There's an RT article, but what are your thoughts? Do you think this is going to end anytime soon, Wyatt, or do you think this is going to be strung on for quite some time? We brought the question to Mark Sloboda. Mark Sloboda thinks this is going to be one of these things where they draw it out for a long time, continue to pump money and weapons in there, the military-industrial complex. I have a different opinion, and we're going to talk about it with the BlackRock article today. I believe that the testing grounds for the fourth industrial revolution will be in Kiev. What are your thoughts?
Honestly, I mean, at this point, I think anybody who's really acts like they can really kind of read the writing on the wall where this is going is probably doing a little bit of wishful thinking. I mean, to me, at the end of the day, the number of people who could really predict where this thing might go, not even where it will go, are probably, you could probably count them on two hands. It's a handful of really like deep state Biden people, Anthony Blinken, and then it's, Vladimir Putin and a handful of top Russian officials. Those are the only people who really have a sense for like the long term, and really, I think the only people who have a sense of actually like what might the reality on the ground look like from a bird's eye view. And I don't even know if I think Joe Biden has that view. I would imagine the CIA director does. So to me, I mean, just the fog of war, we're in this bizarre conflict where everything is videotaped, and yet we somehow know even less than we would, think just not seeing anything about the trajectory of this war. But from the, fairly limited video footage that has come out of this counteroffensive, it does appear that the Ukrainians are getting beaten back pretty solidly. You have dozens of, Bradley fighting vehicles. You have multiple Leopard tanks that are showing up burned out husks in videos from Russian drones, or they're showing up basically abandoned on the battlefield because the relatively untrained conscripts that got stuck in them freaked out at the first sign of artillery and just ran off into the woods. So, you are seeing signs that the counteroffensive isn't going the way that Kiev would hope, the way that Washington would hope. But I caution people against reading into too much of, you see one particular video, we saw this video in, I believe, the Zaporizhia region where it's like a dozen burned out vehicles and tanks, multiple tanks. And, if you look at that, it would definitely give you the idea that, this is totally unsustainable, that Ukraine can't win this. But if you remember last year, in the month following the beginning of the special military operation, there were quite a few Russian convoys that ended up looking fairly similar. River crossings where just you would have, a dozen vehicles or a half dozen vehicles that got completely smashed. And, it was a pretty bloody scene. So at the same time, I caution people then to say, well, that doesn't mean that Russia is losing. They control currently almost 100,000 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory. That's by, if that's your definition of losing, I'd hate to see what it looks like if Putin won, But in terms of where we're at on the counteroffensive, I think it's a little bit too soon to say. But so far, there's no indication that it's been successful that I've seen, at least from the Ukrainian perspective, right? Or the Western perspective.
I think you got to define what successful is. I think the military-industrial complex, I always said this before,
Right.
Wyatt, they don't care who wins the war. They don't care who loses the war. All they care is that they have the war. So if there's American-made tanks and Humvees and everything getting blown up, I think they start licking their lips and saying, guess what? We can sell a little more now. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We have that point. Last week, I was at this convention with a bunch of truthers, right? It was called Rebels for a Cause, and it was some awesome people. And it had such a big tent. I mean, Patrick Burns was one of the first people to speak. I was one of the last. And when you have a tent that big of all these different ideologies, when we had some conversations about what's going on over there, I think they tend, being that they're truthers, to think a little bit more, I don't want to use the term conspiracy theory, but a little bit more about, that bigger picture we talk about. Remember we talked about this when we were in Cuba, how they don't have a sense of the micro. They don't do what we do. They don't go and talk to the people. They don't get on the grounds. However, they're looking at these big organizations like the WEF, like the International Bank of Settlements, where they get these ideas. And you have to look at these things because all these countries are drawing loans from this bank, if not going the BRICS way. So you got to look at where the money and the resources is coming from. But they tend to think that Putin sometimes is a part of the whole thing. And that's why they're doing this, because with this happening, it allows NATO to continue to expand, to bring more members in. It allows the military-industrial complex to sell more weapons. It's also a depopulation program because people are dying, and a lot of people don't talk about that. But when you look at things on the surface, you got to say to yourself, how can Ukraine even be in this fight? They're such a small country compared to the Russians, the Russian Federation. At one point, I think in the beginning, almost like 6 months into the whole battle, we found out that, the Russians have only committed like 20% of their artillery and troops. And they have, they're bringing up, what do you call it? A draft at home. They're bringing up reserves. They're going to bring 200,000 more troops in when they're trained. So when you think logically, you're like, there's no way Ukraine can even hold off. And you listen to people like Scott Ritter, and they say, no, this is almost like a 5-6 to 1 ratio of Ukrainians getting killed to Russians. So when you look at these things, you got to say to yourself, man, how much longer can Ukraine hold out? I mean, this is the Russian Federation. It's got to end sooner or later. No, but then we hear these offensive attacks. Ukraine's still going there. We're sending them jets, you know what I'm saying? Send them bombers and stuff like that. But Putin, I think we have to look at what Putin's doing right now, because I don't believe that. I believe he's protecting Mother Russia. I believe he's just a true nationalist. He's going to do what's best for his country. He's fed up with NATO creeping on their borders. They were killing citizens of the Donbass, 14,000 before he got involved. And for what I understand, I don't know this for a fact, but what people have told me, Wyatt, is that he was getting pressure from citizens in Moscow, citizens in Russia going, why are you leaving these ethnic Russians in the Donbass to die? Get in there already. Let's pull up this article, Cheese Slice, really quickly, because in this article here in RT, you got a cheese slice? Beautiful. Here's what Putin told journalists about Russia's goals in the Ukraine conflict. So I think we can get a kind of point of view of what he's saying. We can look from his lenses. The Russian president addressed the current offensive long-term ambitions and whether a new mobilization will be needed. And if you just look at certain of the bullet points, number one, Moscow's objectives will remain unchanged. The goal laid out in February 2022 are essential. And while some details are subject to change based upon the developing situation, they remain fundamentally the same, Putin said. Demilitarization of Ukraine is happening gradually and methodically, with Kiev's troops now entirely reliant on Western weapons, equipment, and ammunition. I thought they always were. Unable to produce anything locally. There has been progress on protecting the people of Donbass, though Ukraine continues to bombard them. If Kiev's drone strikes and incursions continue, Moscow may consider setting up a buffer zone in Ukraine territory to keep them out of range. No fundamental changes have taken place today in terms of the goals, that were set for ourselves at the beginning of the operation, Putin said. I think a lot of people struggle with this one, Wyatt. There are people out there who still say that Vladimir Putin is trying to revive the old Russian USSR territory. Your thoughts on this over here? Because I thought his mission has always been the same. Free the Donbass, let them become independent, stop the Nazis, the denazification, the militias of the Ukrainians, to stop bombarding these people and make sure that they recognize Crimea as part of Russia. In your opinion, are those goals still the same, or has anything changed, being the fact that now we see drones getting inside Mother Russia? Go ahead, buddy.
Well, I think the only kind of notable difference there is the reference to kind of a buffer zone as being, I mean, that's always what they viewed Donbass as, right? Going back to 2014, they held a referendum there, right? They wanted to join Russia. Russia and Putin said, no, we don't want you. We want Ukraine to remain whole. We want to have these autonomous regions within Ukraine, but we don't want to get in this position of having to dramatically rewrite these borders unless that's absolutely necessary. And so what they did was they waited and waited and waited. And if you talk to the people there in Donetsk, in Lugansk, in all these villages, for many of them, they were, as you said, quite upset about it, were begging for intervention for many years because they were getting sick of being shelled and bombarded in their own homes for the crime of basically refusing to kneel before Nazis from Western Ukraine who wanted them to worship Stepan Bandera, you know, the father of Ukrainian nationalism, who's responsible for the elimination of over 100,000 Jews and Poles, right? They weren't into aligning with these fascists who had killed their grandparents, killed many Russians as well, when they collaborated with the Nazis and fought against the Red Army. Many people in Eastern Ukraine lost grandparents during the World War II, which is known as the Great Patriotic War. You know, so yeah, I guess I can sort of see on a certain level the perspective that that this is all kind of being stage managed, and actually Putin is somehow on the same side because look, you know, NATO enlarged or whatever. I don't buy it. I mean, first of all, because I've covered this conflict from the ground and I was almost killed in an artillery strike myself by American weapons. Those are real guns. They're real artillery shells. They were doing real damage and killing real people. It's not a
Breaking news
show. It's terrifying, frankly.
Yeah.
And
Is he frozen?
one day near the front lines, you'll have a sense, I think you'll be pretty reassured that this is real life. You know, it's not for show. And even more so, I mean, I can understand it again from the perspective that, you know, Russia did very openly for several years talk about, you know, we would actually like to be part of NATO. I know it was never about we want to be part of this, you know, group of aggressors. It was that we don't want to be the one that this thing is positioned against. We don't want to be the target of NATO. And the only way they could conceive of, I think at the time, was to say, hey, we're actually just a normal European country like the rest of you guys. Let us into NATO. And thus we basically eliminate our number one geopolitical strategic threat, which is NATO encirclement, and has been for decades and decades and decades since the beginning of NATO, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, that's kind of my thought on that. And in terms of Russian objectives, I mean, they're just slowly, methodically wearing down Ukraine's armed forces and trying to blow up all the Western weapons at a rate that is faster than the West can send new ones. You know, and for all the talk about F-16s, for example, we still don't have Ukrainian pilots training in them. And that got pushed back in the past couple of days yet again. I think just this morning or yesterday, another report came out saying, you know, they're delaying this once more. You know, there are some pretty concerning reports about depleted uranium munitions being used, which constitutes a war crime in and of itself. You know, that is a biological weapon. They cause birth defects. That's a well-known phenomenon. After they were used in Fallujah, I believe, there were tens of thousands of babies born with inhuman birth defects. And the same, of course, will occur in former Eastern Ukraine, what is now known as Novorossiya, if these munitions are deployed, which again, I think draws us to a bigger point. And this is something we've been wanting to talk about with BlackRock, because this whole, I mean, when you think about it, you know, what is the West interested in when it comes to wanting to grab Donbass back, wanting to grab Crimea back? Well, Donbass is one of the most resource-rich regions in the entire planet. The Washington Post reported in August that the territory that the Russians now controlled, that had been formerly Ukraine, had mineral wealth of over $12.4 trillion in terms of coal, in terms of gas, in terms of natural resources, right? And then when you add in the wheat, for example, we are really talking about one of the most productive regions on the planet. But the problem is, from the Western perspective, is that it's filled with Russians. people who consider themselves Russians,
Russian. Yeah.
people who speak Russian, people who want to be a part of Russia. Now, the solution, of course, is not to incorporate those people into Ukraine. It is to eliminate them, final solution style, to either force them to flee from their homes, hence the nonstop bombardment that's been going on since 2014, or to simply eliminate them, which is what the Russian side says was going to happen if they didn't intervene last February. They say basically a offensive on Donetsk was imminent. The Ukrainians, because they were also building up military forces on their side of the border, they said that they were going to come in and wipe out all the civilians in Donetsk. And people there in those regions believe that. Whether it's true or not, they believe that, and they've seen the attitude of the Ukrainian forces that they dealt with, and it makes them believe it even more. And so, end of the day, from their perspective, and it's one I'm inclined to agree with, the whole point is basically to slaughter the people of the Donbass so that they can come in and repopulate it with Ukrainian nationalists and then suck out all the resources that are currently underneath these inconvenient pro-Russian Ukrainians.
Yep. We have a history of doing this. If there's minerals somewhere, we want them, we will grab them. You know what I'm saying? We do this in Latin America, in the global South. It's all about this fourth industrial revolution and these rare minerals moving forward. They want them. United States, I think the whole thing when it comes to Mexico, which they're starting this cartel nonsense that they, it's the cartels. We got to go in there. They're removing fentanyl into the United States. Well, first of all, the cartels don't operate without the consent of the CIA. So if you really want to stop the cartels, you don't go south of the border. You go to Langley.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, this stuff can be made in the States very easily as well. It's easier to make than meth. So that's something we have to consider. It's already going to be made in the United States. They don't need to make it down there. They'll make it over here. So what? Okay. And the third part is that we have to talk about who created the customers, who created the people who want this stuff. Well, that's Big Pharma. Once again, giving us our kids Adderall, giving our people opioids, the Sackler family, they just got away with murder.
Right.
So with that going on. But for me, Wyatt, really quickly, and I'll pass it right to you, is I think that we want to go in there because the lithium's there and AMLO's nationalizing the lithium. And that's pissing off a lot of corporations that want those minerals. I think it's the same thing in the Donbass. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really important to note that in the last week or so, we've seen reports that opium production has been virtually eliminated in Afghanistan, reduced by something like 99%. So that happened. Of course, it took, about a year after the Americans were kicked out for opium production to be dropped to practically zero. Also, interestingly, the same exact thing happened in 2001, a few months before the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan and 9/11 happened. Opium production was outlawed by the Taliban, and it dropped to virtually zero. And then, of course, in the intermittent years between 2001 and now, opium production rose to the highest level it had ever been, tripled, quadrupled even, from the levels it had been prior to 2001. And if you talk to anyone who served in Afghanistan practically, this is common knowledge among people who spend any time with members of the military. You'll hear dozens of accounts of people whose job, soldiers in the U.S. military, whose job was to guard opium fields when they were in Afghanistan. That's what they spent all day doing, guarding opium fields on behalf of these like medieval warlords who liked to diddle kids. That's what their job was. And it made a lot of them crazy. And frankly, a lot of them, still struggle to come to terms with what it was that they were actually doing, which is running protection for the world's biggest drug dealers, not saving anybody or bringing democracy. So that got me a little bit off chart there, but you were
but it's exactly what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the lithium issue in Mexico, I'm semi-inclined to agree, but frankly, I think it probably has a little bit more to do with the nationalization of Mexican oil, right? Frankly, because the lithium issue, the lithium triangle, that's in South America, right? That's countries like Chile and Bolivia, right? That is where the vast majority of the continent's lithium deposits are found. Yeah. And you do, of course, see the heavy hand of U.S. foreign policy in these countries. You saw a coup d'etat in Bolivia that Elon Musk famously basically conceded was about the lithium that former President Evo Morales says consistently was about the lithium. In that case, I'm pretty inclined to agree. The Mexico case, I think there's probably a few more issues that make it a little bit less black and white that this was just about lithium. But it's kind of the overall trend towards that AMLO represents, towards Mexico for Mexicans, Mexican resources for Mexican people, and ensuring that all of that money and that development that comes from it benefits normal people instead of a small group of elites and a small group of Americans.
Yeah, it's the nationalization of these countries with their own resources. God forbid,
Right.
why they get to make their own decisions. Cheese Slice, let's bring up the rest of this article so we can hit these bullet points and get onto the BlackRock article. The progress of the Ukraine's offensive. I think we see this. We played the first clip right out of the gate. These tanks are getting knocked all over the place. They're really not putting up too much of a fight. 3, why Russia is not like Ukraine. We are a government of laws. They behave like a regime based on terror. Yeah, because since 2014, they've been completely controlled by the West. We have smoking bazooka evidence, with Victoria Nuland talking to Jeffrey Pyatt as they were handing out cookies on the Maidan. Putin said in response to a question about introducing martial law to deal with assassinations of journalists and public figures such as Daria Dugina. Did I say her name right? I hope I said it right.
Dugina.
Mr. Tartovsky, which we saw the whole statue head blow up, or the attack of Zakhar Prilipin. If Fiorella was here, she'd be yelling at me the way I mispronounced these. Russia cannot use terrorist methods, but we will step up the work of security services to counter Kiev's plots, he said, adding that there is no need to introduce martial law, which it says a lot compared to people like with their emergency powers in the United States, in Canada with Justin Trudeau. Here's Vladimir Putin, the mean guy, the madman, the crazy one going, we're not going to invoke our emergency powers. And a lot of people don't realize why, because they're taught differently, that Russia has a government. Russia has a system. Russia has a parliament. They actually go through steps before they start launching offenses anywhere. They think it says Putin's having a bad day. He had a shot of vodka and he says, launch the planes. That's not the case there. So that's something we know. That's why Russia is not like the Ukraine. That's why Russia's not like the United States. Your thoughts on that, really, that part before we go over the last two?
Well, yeah, Ukraine has really degenerated into a failed state, and you can see evidence of this all over. It's basically a country now where men aged 16 to 65 can't come out in public very easily. A handful of them can if they're powerful and influential and they're able to bribe their way out of potentially getting conscripted. But, the rest of the males in Ukrainian society are basically kind of living underground. When they pop up, they'll be accosted by military officers, by soldiers who are tasked with basically kidnapping them by any means necessary and throwing them into the back of a truck and dumping them on the front lines.
The meat grinder.
And the meat grinder, right? And even though the Bakhmut meat grinder has closed, as it was very ghoulishly termed, the rest of the front has now turned into a similar meat grinder where the tactics from Russia seem to be pretty classic kind of Soviet military doctrine going back to World War II, where they just, they're not really, the goal isn't to take one specific individual village. The goal is to exhaust the fighting capabilities of their opponents. So they do this by having a flexible line and collapsing back a couple kilometers when they face a probing attack, and then they just bomb the hell out of whatever group came after them with artillery from 3 sides, right? They open up the front, draw them into a little cauldron, and boom, 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 boom. And so far, it seems to be pretty effective. As we've noted, haven't been any real major advances. A handful of settlements changing hands here and there. But this is something that I've been talking about, frankly, for months, well before this wave of assassinations kicked off. I was telling some of our colleagues at the Gray Zone that I didn't expect that Ukraine will be able to really hold its own on the battlefield. It doesn't have the numbers. It's facing a country 3 times its size in terms of population. A good quarter of the population has already run off, most of them actually to Russia, and then a slightly lower number to Europe and the West.
Yeah.
But
this is where I want to stay, though. Right here, this is a great part. This is what you're saying right there. The question down below, which is also the next question on that article. 4, do you think, well, from what you're seeing, will there be another mobilization? Because if there's another mobilization, or if there's another another bunch of weapons that are sent there where the American tax dollar is paying for it, that means this thing is going to be drawn on and keep going on. But I just keep on thinking that they're trying to get their last bit of dump of money, their last bit of scamming, where they're just trying to get as much money out before they have to end this thing and go look at Taiwan and go move everything over there. What are your thoughts? Do you think there will be another will there be another mobilization?
It's impossible to say. It really is. I mean, so much could happen just in the next year. We don't really know. I mean, so much of this even depends on U.S. domestic politics. What happens if Donald Trump seriously looks like he's going to win the election? You know, will the Biden kind of sort of deep state factions, will they have to have one last hurrah and say, you know, we got to get out of this thing? I don't know. I don't think anybody can really say. In terms of what he told his audience, which we should be clear, he was talking to Russian kind of military bloggers, people like War Gonzo, you know, these frontline sort of Telegram journalists who I saw a number of when I was in Donetsk. But these are kind of the guys who have these military backgrounds, who are doing this semi-autonomously, but have these military sources fairly high up in many cases. So the fact that he's talking to them at all kind of tells you something, right? These guys are kind of the most hawkish voices in Russian society right now. They are constantly, many of them, taking a fairly sort of pro-Wagner perspective, very critical of the Ministry of Defense for its perceived failures. So, I mean, just who he's sitting down with in and of itself, he's telling them there's not going to be a mobilization. Some of them were probably a little bit disappointed to hear that because they want to kind of end this thing once and for all. But the Russian doctrine so far has been, look, we're not going to try to go in with overwhelming force and then have to control this totally unmanageable failed state that's full of spies and people who hate us and have to do like that, the real Afghanistan operation, you know, Soviet times, where you're basically just operating in enemy territory and can be struck at any time. Eastern Ukraine is not like that, right? Yeah. Western Ukraine is. So in terms of a full mobilization, that doesn't seem to be in the cards in the near term. But if there is a massive mobilization, if we do somehow, the crazies in the Baltic states, the NATO lapdog presidents, somehow get their troops in, you know, we've got hundreds of thousands of NATO troops coming to the region for some kind of in the next coming weeks, I believe, hundreds of thousands of NATO troops destined for Eastern Europe. So
they've already been there too, right? We know that there's been NATO troops there. And when you talked about the fighter jets, they did this whole story when they brought these 2 Ukrainian pilots right around the release of Top Gun. And the Ukraine went, it was Monk, Fish, and Juice, I think their names were. And they gave them the whole gear. And there's a Ukrainian pilots in D.C. begging for help. But it's kind of funny. And I think the last part of this article
Kyiv was unavailable.
What's that?
I said, I guess the Ghost of Kyiv was unavailable.
Yeah, no, oh my, I forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me about the Ghost of Kyiv, not the Ghost of Kiev. The last part of the article, which I think is great right here, and Cheese Slice, if you can bring it up, on the role of industry in the conflict. Okay, so meaning what's going to happen now to the industries within Ukraine? What's going to happen to the industries in the United States? Russia began overhauling its defense industry 8 years ago, but the conflict made it clear the remaining shortcomings, Putin said, such as the availability of drones. Since the start of hostilities, the Russian industry has increased production up to tenfold for certain systems, with some companies operating in 3 shifts. Meanwhile, Ukraine's capabilities have been almost entirely eliminated, Wyatt, and they depend entirely on the West. What do? You call BlackRock. You get Larry Fink on the phone. The West doesn't care if their weapons deliveries violate laws and have not yet realized they will never achieve the objectives when it comes to Russia. They will have to understand that. I think they gradually will, said Putin. And it seems like he's just calling out their bluffs. He's ready to say, hey, man, we're going to step it up. And the thing about it is, remember in the beginning, they were like, Russia's running out of tanks. They're running out of bullets. They're going to China. That's not true. But here's the thing. Now with the alliance of China, and China has been stockpiling for God knows how long. They haven't had a military conflict since, I think, the 1970s with Vietnam. They had a little tussle, but that's it. So China, who's provided drones to other countries before, can start providing drones to Russia now. You know what I'm saying? So they got help. They got friends now. The BRICS nations are getting bigger. People are getting in there. They're saying, let's go. Can we be a part of BRICS? The Honduras situation, I think you wrote an article on. This thing, America is not going to be able to outlast these other countries. In fact, it's just going to come a point where we mess around too much. That whole you F around, you find out. When we're starting to send military, American-made drones into Moscow, there's only so much longer you can hold out. But let's get to this BlackRock article. Cheese Slice, get that BlackRock article up because Wyatt shared this the other day. This thing is amazing. Ukraine falls into the hands of dun 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 BlackRock. Give me your opinions on this before I jump on into it. If you have anything to say there, buddy.
Yeah, well, so this article came out in response to an agreement that was signed last month between the Zelensky regime and the massive investment fund BlackRock. They signed what is called an agreement for the creation of a Ukrainian Development Fund. Now, this follows an agreement that was signed in December to supposedly coordinate investment efforts to rebuild the nation. And now, this means basically this year they're in the process now of sending their own executives to Ukraine to, quote, advise the Ukrainian government on how to structure the country's reconstruction funds. And a lot of what they seem to be involved in will also have to do with managing defense contracts, manufacturing industry in Ukraine. But it's important to break down exactly who BlackRock is. They have $10 trillion in assets, and that is an amount that's more than the gross domestic product of any country in the world except for the US or China, right? So if BlackRock's assets were a country, they would be India, right? They would be number 3. And so that's who we're talking about, right? We're not talking about some random investment fund. We're talking about a massive behemoth of a company, which is also inextricably linked to the Biden administration, the deep state, the CIA, high-level executives going back and forth from BlackRock into these agencies and vice versa. And so, I'll let you get into this article because the author details the specific officials, who serves in BlackRock, who serves, who's coming from the political world serving in BlackRock, who's coming from BlackRock serving the political world. I think, this article lays it out pretty clearly. The main takeaway here is that basically what this means is that the same U.S. taxpayers who've been pumping over, hundreds of billions of dollars into the most corrupt regime in Europe are now paying the biggest hedge fund in the world, the biggest financial behemoth in the world, to manage that money that got taken from us in the first place and sent over to that corrupt regime in Ukraine. You know, so it's like they've got this scam worked out on every single angle to where they can take a piece of every little pie. You know, it's not just the natural gas that they're pumping in. You know, now they're selling to Europe at 3 or 4 times the cost from the American LNG producers. It's not just the weapons that they're now selling all these European countries, because they basically have had their own domestic defense production capacities hollowed out by years of being dependent on the United States.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's every single angle to this. Somebody is getting a slice and making, you know, a buck off of this thing. And everywhere you go, you know what I mean? It's like the perfect scam. And even, you know, even the scam is getting scammed. That's kind of the point of this article here.
Dude, you know, who put a nickel in you? Wyatt Reed. He is amped today. I didn't even think the coffee kicked in yet, man. Yeah, this article you shared, so much to unpack over here. I'm going to read into this because this has a lot too as well. When we talk about that fourth industrial revolution, when we talk about what's the future going to be like, you know what I'm saying? And this also highlights more than anything the public-private relationship within government and governmental contracts, which essentially is fascism. The corporations controlling everything. The corporations calling the shot. I'm going to read into this article because there's so much to unpack. This is just an amazing article. In May 2023, the government of Ukraine and Vice President Philip Hildebrand of the U.S. company BlackRock Financial Market Advisory signed an agreement on the creation of the Ukrainian Development Fund, which means you're paying for it, a financial institution for the reconstruction of the country. Together with Vanguard, the other crony capitalist, freaking crazy private equity vulture fund, BlackRock is the world's leading firm. Both investment funds manage a total of 17 trillion, Dr. Evil, trillion, a sum equivalent to the entire GDP of the European Union. So don't tell me it ain't oligarchs and private industry owning everything. This is fascism, global fascism at its finest. The collaboration of Zelensky's government with BlackRock began in September 2022. We were sounding the alarm back then when the New York Times reported on the negotiations of the Ukrainian president with the head of the company, Larry Fink, on the creation of a certain reconstructing fund. That's why a lot of the truthers like, no, Putin's a part of this because they had to blow it on up so they can rebuild it back. Well, you don't know that, but I'm glad your head is thinking elsewhere. The signing parties followed the provisions of the Memorandum of Understanding. Listen to the name of that. We have a Memorandum of Understanding signed in November 2022 by the Ministry of Economy of Ukraine and BlackRock. So they're working together. Specifically, the fund will mobilize capital to carry out the reconstruction of the country, focusing on sectors such as energy, controlling how much energy you can have. It's going to be a centralized system. They're going to eliminate as much gas as possible. They're going to have more electricity. Why? Because if you don't do what they say, they can turn it off. Infrastructure. This is about the 15-minute cities, in my mind, that they're going to put together. Tracking and tracing wherever you go, whenever you go, saying, don't go out of your 15-minute cities. Agriculture. You got to control the food, Wyatt. If you control the food, you control the people and industry and information technology. That, to me, is the big part. Information technology, making sure they can track and trace you wherever they go. This has dirty fingerprints of everything, of every angle, whether you're an anti-imperialist leftist and you want to stop imperialism, whether you're a truther who think the fourth industrial revolution is coming, whether you're a Democrat or a fiscal conservative or whatever, and you don't want this money coming out of your pocket, it's all here. It's all there, ladies and gentlemen. No matter what angle you look at it from, no matter what side of the aisle, Wyatt, we're all getting fucking screwed here, no?
Absolutely. And, you know, there was actually an event in DC just a couple weeks ago where they introduced this Ukrainian government app called DIA, DIIA. And this is basically a way of, it's like a digital sort of ID tracking you, preventing you from all the terrible things that people in the West say that China is doing to its people with like social credit scores. That's actually happening in Ukraine right now. And what all these, wonderful U.S. officials like Samantha Power, the USAID administrator, she was on stage just gushing about this. They want to export that to the United States. They they say that Ukraine is like a digital laboratory for all this, wonderful things that we want to roll out in the West, but we just don't have, a corrupt enough system. People aren't desperate enough to dump it out on us here at home. So they got to go with the guinea pigs in Ukraine. And this is the same thing with this BlackRock stuff, right? They're letting this massive public-private fascist entity come in and take a leading role in the management of an entire government in a way that they used to only be able to dream. They dreamed up these whole ideas like the World Bank and the IMF so that they would get to constrain these governments. But now all of a sudden they really own them. They are them. You know what I mean? They control the purse strings directly. They don't have to go in and convince some government, that has to manage public opinion. There is no managing of public opinion in Ukraine. You speak out, you get locked up, best case. Worst case, you end up in a ditch, not breathing, right? So, where better to roll out all of these insane schemes, that they want to use to control all of us in the West long term, where better to do that than in a place where nobody can complain or they just get locked up or killed.
Yep. Let's go to this one part of the article because I just want to finish up on it because Wyatt did mention something earlier in the show, early in the segment. Not only is it a shareholder in major financial and pharmaceutical companies. You see that part? If you go down a little bit, cheese slice. Nope, the other way. Right there. Yep, okay. If you can make it bigger, just make it bigger on the screen so we can see that. There you go. That's now, there's a joke there somewhere. Not only is it a shareholder in major financial and pharmaceutical companies, military industrial giants, and media corporations from former top BlackRock officials often move on to positions in the White House. That private partner relationship in your face. In the Joe Biden administration, there are now three Deputy Treasury Secretary Wally Adamyeo, Treasury Senior Advisor on Economic Issues related to Russia and Ukraine, Eric von Nostrum, and Mike Pyle, Senior Economic Advisor, to Vice President Kamala Harris. It's
so you like that, right?
Face.
They got the Treasury Senior Advisor on Economic Issues. He's a BlackRock man.
Yeah.
So he never had to make new relationships. You know what I mean? He's already got all these guys who's going to talk about managing the Kiev regime's economy. They're already on his speed dial.
Yeah.
They already hang out. There is no need to network and, loop anybody in. No, it's all the same club and they've all already been there. Sorry, go ahead. There's still more here.
Oh, you want me to read a little bit more? Okay. Brian Deese served as director of the U.S. National Economic Council until February 2023. Thomas Donilon, president of BlackRock's research arm, was a longtime national security advisor to Barack Obama, while his brother Mike was chief strategist on Joe Biden's presidential campaign and was later named senior advisor in his administration. BlackRock's senior executives include several retired CIA officers. And the company itself finances the InQtel venture capital fund set up by the CIA, otherwise known as the Central Intelligence Agency. In your face, Wyatt. They're not even freaking hiding it. In your face, CIA.
Right. And then so you see who they even put in charge of this. So, it's all these like corrupt Ukrainian officials.
Yeah. So I'll read that next one. Okay. So this is the corruption in the Ukraine matters. According to the reports from Kiev, depending on what side of the battle you're on, the implementation of the agreement involves officials accused of corruption on several occasions. The former head of the National Bank of Ukraine, Valeria Gontorava, I probably got the name right, Valerie G., the former head of the Ministry of Finance of Ukraine, a U.S. citizen, Natalia Yareskov, and, of course, the promoter of George Soros himself, interest in Ukraine, Viktor Pinchuk, a billionaire who has managed to avoid de-oligarchization, son-in-law of the second Ukrainian president, Leonid Kuchma.
Leonid Kuchma.
Yeah, Leonid Kuchma. You're
Yes.
better with these names. You've been to the region, not me.
Yeah, so I mean, you get a sense though. It's a big, huge scam. Everybody's getting rich off of it. Ukraine is run by a bunch of scam artists. The president, this guy who just he's like a failed actor, and now all of a sudden, his wife is running around Europe spending thousands of dollars on Gucci and Prada. Normal for like an average actor in a Eastern European country to have that kind of money, and then he was obviously, even before all this kicked off, named in the Pandora Papers for having all this money offshore. So obviously a guy who's got money of questionable origins, that's who's running Ukraine. That's been the whole scam the entire time. If you remember, a few months back, there was a period of great instability at the top of the Kiev regime. A number of very high-ranking Ministry of Defense officials died in this very mysterious helicopter crash, which was never really explained. A lot of Russian commentators at the time said that it was likely that this was kind of an internal corruption battle where people were basically asking for too much and so that was, another bizarre story of, very high level Ukrainian officials who mysteriously vanished, and notoriously corrupt, I should add. And this is something that even, especially prior to February 2022, you could read in any mainstream newspaper in the West just how corrupt Ukraine was. And even now, you sort of start to see the truth peeking out from under the carpet. They tried to hide it up, but they have to acknowledge it from time to time because it's just so in your face. You don't really know where anything you send to Ukraine is going to go. So you have the handful of kind of honest actors in the United States kind of waving and shouting their arms, desperately trying to create some system to track this or that resources, and generally
the
being
cartels, right?
Stone walls.
That's the story. You hear the story that the cartels now getting weapons. They want to manufacture more consent to go into Mexico without permission from AMLO or the government themselves. Weapons from Ukraine have ended up in the cartels' hands in Mexico. So now we got to go in there and get them, and you can see if Trump gets in there, I'm gonna fix what Sleepy Joe created. I'm gonna get these weapons out of the hands of the cartel. We're gonna take them out. And by the way, let me tell you one thing, Wyatt. China.
Well, I think I don't know. I think you'd have to be a pretty massive moron to try to actually start a war with Mexico, which would be like a wet dream for Russia and China, right? To have like the opportunity to fuck with the U.S. with like an open war right on their border, the same way that the U.S. fucks with them. I think like if they really took it to that level, it would be like national suicide. That's kind of
Wyatt, they'll buy the special operations. They'll buy it because the populist right. Now, here's something I explain to people all the time. The right is 2 or 3 times the size of the left in America.
Uh-huh.
People have to understand that. Jimmy Dore, Kim Iverson, and the Gray Zone, the top 3 independent leftist shows out there, are 1/4 the size of Charlie Kirk, Louder with Crowder, all those other guys. They're huge, massive audiences.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the majority of the people in this country. The majority of the people in this country still are mad that immigrants are coming into the border. They don't want to accept the fact that our foreign policy in these other countries is a causation.
Look, they can be mad all they want about it, but
they'll buy Green Berets.
The fundamental underlying military strategy that has always existed within the U.S. establishment is that we are the safest place in the world because we have only 2 borders and they're friendly governments, and the rest of our front lines is ocean. It makes it impossible to invade. Starting a land war with a country that has close to 1,000 miles of border, maybe more. It's suicide. You know what I mean? I think it's posturing, and I think it's populist posturing, but I don't think that anyone actually wants. Look, Trump actually got along with AMLO. Trump got along better with AMLO than Biden gets along with AMLO. Biden got into office, and AMLO he gets up into DC and he starts giving orders. He's like, this moron. He's so badly mismanaged the Summit of Americas fiasco. He basically let AMLO come in and say, well, I'm gonna be the one who calls shots, and I'm gonna extract a bunch of concessions, and probably not even gonna come anyway. Then let's Bolsonaro come in. He extracts a bunch of concessions, says, I'm gonna go, I'll go, but only if you give me a bunch of stuff that I want. Like, frankly, I don't think Trump would actually start a land war with our southern neighbor.
Special operations, not a land war. Not a land war.
It would dramatically destabilize the entire, southern border. It would. The whole point of U.S. foreign policy is to have our wars be elsewhere.
I
right?
get that.
We
But
want
what
the
do you
wars
do
to
when
be
you exhaust
not on our
yourself on
border.
these other countries, though, Wyatt?
Well,
when
the
you
other
exhaust
countries
yourself on those other
aren't
countries-
trying to have a war with us. We're the ones picking a fight.
I think
That's
it's
what-
crazy. But this guy has been. Watch his speech about the cartels. I will crush the cartels where they're at.
Sure,
You know what I'm saying?
sure.
Listen. I hope to God.
He says
not.
a lot of things.
I
Is he
hope to
stupid
God
enough
not.
to invade Mexico? Come on, man.
Wyatt, I hope to God not, but they're talking like they're gonna do it, and the Republicans are there. You got Eye Patch McCain and Dan Crenshaw talking about. You got Josh Hawley, all these other guys. Let's get to the other representative though, Mr. Bacon, real quick, so we can wrap this up. What's going on with Mr. Bacon over here, Wyatt? Cheese slice. The next thing in the doc is the Mr. Bacon Wyatt Reed tweet. Make it nice and big. What do you got going on over here? Why are you pissing off our elected officials, Wyatt?
Yeah, so I made a kind of innocuous, I thought, tweet, just quote tweeting this guy, Representative Don Bacon. He represents Nebraska's 2nd district. That's kind of the Omaha region.
Click on that picture.
He published a photo. Look, you have to go back to the original tweet. You have to go back to the original tweet, and then you can do the quote tweet. There you go. Yeah. So this is the original tweet. This is not Representative Bacon himself, but this is the so-called Nebraska representatives of the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition. And what they are doing here, apparently, at the Capitol, is posing in front of a flag that now, if you want to go back to the original tweet that I posted here, is if you Google translate it, that is the translation from Ukrainian.
Can you say it in Ukrainian language? Do you know how to say it?
I do not. One of my many redeeming qualities. But the the point here is basically this was some phrase that was popularized among the pro-Ukrainian Western crowd, supposedly said by some guy on this.
Yeah, let's show that part of the tweet because go down a little bit. So he goes, I have no problem opposing barbaric, unprovoked, and unjust invasion by Putin. I also know Putin propaganda when I see it. And then you said, could you explain which part you're telling your constituents and the followers
this
to?
Phrase that they're posing in front of was supposedly uttered by some Ukrainian soldiers at Snake Island, which, like Ghost of Kiev, is another like mythical occurrence, right? Anyway. So that is what he's referencing. That's what they have on the wall. And that, to me, is basically the message of the American foreign policy establishment to the Americans who they've made pay for all this shit. Go fuck yourself, right? That's kind of what they're saying to everybody. That was the point of the tweet. And so, midnight, basically, on a weekday, Representative Bacon rushes into my replies for some reason. Apparently he has nothing better to do. He's just scrolling through Twitter, furiously refreshing to see everyone who's tagged him. And he says, I have no problem opposing a barbaric, unprovoked, and unjust invasion by Putin. I also know Putin propaganda when I see it. You know, hats off to you, Representative. So I asked him, could you explain which part of you telling your constituents and followers to go fuck yourselves is Putin propaganda, Representative? I wanted to be polite. And he said, that's what the Ukrainians told the Russians when they demanded their surrender. So this Snake Island bullshit.
Yeah.
People who value their independence feel that way towards tyrants. You're a Putin sympathizer and no better than the Nazi ones we heard from in 1938. We stand up to bullies and don't kiss their apostrophe, because apparently now he has issues with profanity. He doesn't mind posting it in Ukrainian, telling people to go fuck yourselves, but he won't say kiss their ass in English, I guess. So I kind of I responded to that in a couple ways. I talked about what's happening in his district. I said, did you know there were nearly 300 fentanyl overdose deaths in your district in the last 4 years? Maybe you should focus on things like that instead of whining about Putin on my Twitter page. And, you know, that to me, because it's so childish. It's like, you're supposed to be, I mean, you are a member of Congress, and this is what you're doing with your free time, is just like trolling my Twitter page.
Isn't it crazy, Wyatt, that they still are trying to convince you that what happens in Ukraine really is reflective of what's going to happen over here? Like, in other words, our freedom at home really depends on what happens over in Ukraine. They're still trying to sell that bullshit to keep funding this goddamn war, rather than worry about these things, which you put up right here, like all these fentanyl deaths, all the homeless people on the street, people losing their jobs, small businesses closing down. There's a million and one things they can worry about here at home, but yet they want to convince you that what happens over there is so important to our lifestyle over here. It's just ridiculous.
And they're still posing it in these insane World War II terms, right? Where like Putin is just a direct equivalent to Adolf Hitler. And if you click on my my Twitter page, you know, you can go down and see where I quote tweeted the guy. I posted just a little bit further down, one or two more there. You know, I kind of explained, like, actually, if I was a Nazi, you know, I said, if I was a Nazi sympathizer, I'd be cheering for them in Ukraine like you, Representative, and show all these pictures of the many Nazis in Ukraine. Here we go. We having, you know, official celebrations in churches to the SS Galicia division.
And he tried to claim that you're no better than the Nazis, right? Like, they do this shit all the time. They project their shit. Yeah.
These are official, you know what I mean? Like, these are official ceremonies held by the towns that they're happening in. This was a normal thing. There is Zelensky right behind him, is the SS Totenkopf, right? That's who is he's a Jew, but he's being protected by Nazis, right? He's a Jew, but he has this extremely now apparently friendly relationship with Azov Battalion, which is, you know, at the end of the day, that's who's funding him. The same people who fund Azov, a oligarch named Igor Kolomoisky, who his patron was, and he was funding both sides. They were really on the same side, right?
Yeah. So that's why getting into it with Representative Don Bacon. Go send him a like over there. Go bug Don Bacon for the day. Go kind of go laugh at that stuff. Get on that thread.
Ask him to do anything useful for his constituents instead of trolling me on Twitter badly.
Yeah, well, we control back, guys. We got about 210 people on YouTube. Thank you to the YouTube people who have woken back up. Remember, they're demonetizing us. I still ask them, guys. I went to go reapply for monetization. It usually takes a month. They haven't looked at our reapplication since December 2022. It's been 6 months. So even though they changed the guidelines, they're still going to punish us. There's not a lot of channels out there like this. You know, Nico House still has the suspension. I believe Frank Analysis, I haven't seen the channel in a while, but I believe he's still suspended. Graham Elwood, I haven't touched base with him in a while, but he's still demonetized. I know that. So please do us a favor, hit the like button, hit the share button. We do have about close to 40 people. We got 35 people. Rockfin Premium members, go over to Rockfin if you can. If you want to leave a few bucks, you can do so there. Of course, if you want to help independent media, all the links are down below in which you can subscribe to the channel, help the channel, throw a few bucks, get me and people like Wyatt. I always like to team up with him when we go to other countries, go out there to do the work we need to do. Just finishing up this section though, the BlackRock situation, this public-private entity, right? When you talk about these big corporations, these captured financial systems, which have captured our government, you know what I'm saying? These are important. This is something that, why I think the RFK campaign is kind of important, because he's gone after and sued a lot of these agencies. These agencies are the ones who are calling the shots. They own our politicians. There is nobody out there. I mean, we have very few people in office that can help us out. So these are the things we have to pay attention to. And what's going on in BlackRock, it's right in your face. You know what I'm saying? They're not even hiding it. They leave BlackRock and they go join the White House team. They join Kamala Harris's team, Joe Biden's team. They work for Obama. You know what I'm saying? This shit is in our face. It is something we need to really fucking think about. We need to have really some more serious discussions. We have to demand they stop funding this damn war. When we got out there for Rage Against the War Machine, that was only the start, but they haven't slowed down one bit, Wyatt. Thank you so much for bringing your insight today. Thank you for messing with Representative Bacon. Let's get on to this last section real quick. It's going to be a quick one so we can cut it up nicely. This last section, this first section we did was about 1:10. I don't know. Did you see the shark attack in the Red Sea? I heard it was a remote-controlled shark by the West that was attacking a Russian nationalist. That's not true. I made that up. That part's made up.
It's kind of insane. It's like it was a Russian guy who left Russia because he didn't want to be a soldier, and then he got bitten by a shark, and all the pro-Ukraine people in the West just were so overjoyed. It was like that little incident made up for the whole failure of the counteroffensive to actually do anything. It's like, well, we didn't really change the front line at all, but that one Russian guy who disliked Putin got eaten. Like, well, there's a plus. We've got always got that
Putin,
going
right?
For it. I mean,
Putin
it's just
sent
bizarre.
a shark. You don't want to fight in a war? We'll send a tiger shark. Let's take a look at this really quick. It's a little disturbing, but it's got millions of views across the board. This was what happened in the Red Sea. A Russian nationalist. Go ahead and play this video.
He's not a nationalist. He left Russia.
Oh, okay.
He's a tourist. Oh, I don't need to see this shit. Oh, that's awful. Okay, I think that's enough of that.
Hold on.
What do you want? You think it's gonna get better? We're watching a snuff film. We're watching somebody die. Why?
All right.
We know how it ends. He dies by eating by a shark.
There's a lot of people who say it's fake.
Oh, what? Nobody.
Yeah.
What? Who
There's
says that?
people saying that it was fake. It's not real. The next
Why?
clip, I think.
Who says that?
There's a few people who say they were saying it online. They were saying it in the chat the other day. They said it's not real, but they supposedly grabbed the shark, the very next clip, and they dragged him to shore. And they're saying that this is the shark. Following its attack, a man in Egypt, the shark was pursued, captured, and subsequently brought to the shore. Here it is.
Oh my God, dude! Why do we have to watch it? Jesus, dude. What do you think is gonna happen? They're gonna fucking kill the shark. The shark's gonna get killed, like the guy got killed.
We gotta report the news. We gotta report the news.
God, dude, report it. We don't have to watch that.
All right, so take
Jesus
that off.
Christ. Oh my God.
Why it's like, what the F? But
it's like, why would we just
we
we could watch like videos of soldiers getting blown up too, I guess.
Right.
It's happening. We know it's happening.
RT. Okay, Egyptians. Why? God damn, we're watching a snuff film. I haven't even had my coffee yet. Egyptians mummify the man.
I was gonna eat after this.
The predator that devoured a Russian man last week will be displayed in the Marine Biology Museum. Local media has reported a shark that mauled a Russian national to death in Egypt last week will end up as a museum exhibit. A top Egyptian oceanographer researcher told the local Cairo 24 news media outlet on Sunday. Scientists will mummify the predator and place it in the Marine Biology Museum in the Egyptian city of Hurghada. Once they finish their research on the creature, Professor Amr Zakaria Hamuda, the head of the National Institute of Oceanography and Fisheries, said. According to Hamuda, the institute initially planned to study and treat the fish before releasing him. He did not elaborate why the scientists have changed their decision. According to Egyptian media, the predator was injured but still alive when caught. So,
Yeah, I mean, to me, the really interesting angle here is just how kind of bloodthirsty all the Western commentators were, like how overjoyed they were. People like Paul Massaro, who's a leading, U.S. official on the Helsinki Commission, he was posting memes about this, the same way that they were during the Kerch Bridge explosion when somebody was like blown up, apparently by explosives, that some, totally innocent guy. And they're making all these hilarious memes about it where it's just like, it's kind of beyond distasteful. It's like, you really just are cheering on bloodshed, And a lot of these guys, they've gotten to the point where Russians are so dehumanized in their head that every Russian is fair game. First of all, they blame all Russians for the military operations in Ukraine. It doesn't matter if you left Russia. It doesn't matter if you fled Russia. It doesn't matter if you call yourself a asylum seeker. You are still going to be treated by these people as a legitimate target. And at the very least, I mean, they'll complain about you speaking your language in public. They'll post videos of it. They'll, they'll ban they just banned the Eat, Pray, Love woman was trying to write a
Wyatt.
silly novel based in an anti-Soviet fiction novel, and they
Wyatt.
canceled her too.
What about the OnlyFans Russians were banned, right? And then we're in Vegas together, and what is the sign we see for the strip club?
Now hiring Ukrainian strippers
and shit. Yeah, that shit went viral. By the way, he put up "Stay away, shark." And then what's the next picture, real quick, Jamie? I want to know if the shark was Russian. And from what I understand, I was talking to Gloria yesterday. She swam in the Red Sea. It's beautiful out there. It's not normal for shark attacks there. It's not a normal occurrence. But what do you have over here, Jamie? Oh, sorry. Suddenly,
you're
I'm not
posting
half the man I used to be.
These are just like foul Ukrainian memes. Like, I don't get it. Like, see, it's just like, why would you think that's funny? That's like some random tourist. Put aside for the fact that you hate him and think he's inhuman because where he was born. That's just like a fucked up thing to joke about. Just like some random guy got eaten by a shark. Ha ha.
I know.
Just insane, dude.
But listen, here's the thing right now. People are demonizing the orcas. We don't know why the orcas are disabling all these boats. There's a pack of them. This one orca's teaching the other orcas how to do it. So right now, people are going to start firing at orcas. The shark eating somebody, right? I put hashtag not all sharks are bad. If you can bring that up, Cheese Slice. This is something I brought a little video to say, hey, listen, it was a shark attack. It was bad. But not all sharks are bad.
I just
Cheese
don't
Slice,
find
you got
this
it?
funny. I don't think it's something we should be joking about. It's just a random guy got eaten by a shark. Like,
I got it. But they mummified the
It's
shark.
sad.
That's what I was bringing to
sad.
the table. Okay. So here's a video. Listen, not all sharks are bad. This is why I did this segment today, because I want to prove that not all sharks are bad. Now watch this video and then we'll read it after. But check it out.
Look, a shark is carrying a turtle on the sea, riding the wind and waves. After seeing human ships from afar, the shark worked hard to escort the turtle over. With the assistance of the shark, the turtle struggled to pounce on the steps of the ship. This incredible scene happened to be discovered by the boy on the ship. After confirming the discovery of sea turtles by humans, the shark turned around and left gracefully. The boy believes that the turtle must need help when it actively approaches humans, so he caught the turtle out of the water. Seeing the help of humans, the helpless turtle left tears of emotion. Originally, the turtle's neck was tightly restrained by a thick rope. Warm-hearted boy carefully examined the turtle's wound, just lightly stroked the turtle's neck. The turtle immediately began to struggle in pain. The boy first flipped the turtle upside down on all fours. It can be clearly seen that 2 ropes have been deeply embedded in the flesh. The turtle must be in great pain. It looked at the human beings in front of it with tears in its eyes. Seems to be asking for help quickly. The boy immediately took out the knife, easily cut the first rope. After a moment, The second one was also smoothly cut open. A large amount of fresh air rushed into the turtle's body in an instant. It can finally breathe freely. I really don't know how the turtle fairy passed through such hardships. Heartwarming girl quickly applied imported Yunnan Baiyao to the turtle's wound. Turtles are the long-lived stars. Please light up the little red star. Everyone, pray for oneself and family, and leave a message in the comments section. Great luck, 4 kind hearts. So you will definitely. Shun Feng Shun Shui Shun
Yeah, I was
Kai Shen.
gonna say,
After the
this
girl
is a
treated the
badly
wound on the
translated
back, 2 boys flipped the
badly
turtle over
AI translated
unexpectedly.
Chinese video.
The infection on the front wound worsened even more severely. Severe swelling, blackening, and emitting a foul odor. If it weren't for meeting these kind-hearted people, in the end, the neck of the turtle fairy will be cut off by the rope. Undoubtedly, he will die as a result. We should apologize to the turtle fairy here. It's
What
the
is
garbage
he
that we
saying
humans
turtle fairy
casually
for?
throw away, causing you to almost die. Besides this lucky turtle, how many lives are quietly passing away in the ocean? The girl repeatedly cleaned and disinfected the turtle wound. 2 boys worked
How long
together
is
to
this
send the
video?
turtle back to the sea. Every plant and plant has a heart. And
There
all
you go.
things
You
have a
cut it off.
spirit. Protecting the ocean starts
Oh,
with me.
geez.
Let's give a big thumbs up to
Dude.
kind-hearted.
You know, Wyatt, I get it, but dude, you're just ignoring the miracle and the anomaly of a shark bringing a turtle to a boat
Was that even
to
a
help it
shark
out,
or a
man.
dolphin? Like, who knows?
Dude, we have a responsibility to report the good sharks. Hashtag not all sharks are bad. People are going to be
Yes.
mad at sharks now. We did our duty as humans right there to show a shark saving a turtle, buddy.
Okay. Are we done with this bit? Can we move on? Was that the...
You got some tweets, Jamie Cheese Slice over there. Cheese Slice, what do we got to finish up the show? We got to get out of here very shortly. It's been going on for quite some time, but we got about 7 minutes left, so we get a 90-minute show. What do you got over there, Cheese Slice, for some tweets you want us to take a quick look at? Can't hear you.
I have a shark music video if you want to see it.
Oh, my God. I'm out of here. All right.
No, it's
Later,
not
guys.
Bad. It's not bad.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
We got to.
We'll catch you next week.
You can't just leave. We got to make
I
sure that people can
absolutely
follow
can.
you. And
You couldn't tell me you wanted to spend 15 minutes joking about a Russian dying from a shark attack.
no, it's it's news. What are you talking about? They mummified the shark. It was on RT. We gotta cover this stuff.
Oh my God. It's so distasteful.
Is this making fun of it? Well, there it is. There's
Yes,
Twitter.
it's making fun of it. Not all sharks. Durr.
Not all sharks
Are
are
you paying
bad,
respect?
man.
Are you paying respect to the guy? Is that what you're doing?
Dude, I
This is
feel
how
bad for the guy. I think it's awful. I really do.
Me too. That's why, like, if you want to make fun of it, go join the pro-Ukrainians. Like, that's all they're doing. It's
I'm
like
not
making
making
fun of some.
it.
Yes, you are. Shut up.
They mummified the shark.
So make fun of the mummy thing. I don't know. Whatever. Like, I don't know. The whole saga. It's just like sad to me. It's just like a sad
It
thing.
does suck, and I feel really bad for those people too as well.
I feel
But I
bad
think
for
it's
the guy's
kind of crazy.
girlfriend. I feel bad for the people that had to watch somebody be eaten alive. You know,
Yeah,
like
that
that
shit's
sucks. They
terrible.
probably
That
never
shit's
get out of
terrible.
their heads. Like it's just a shitty thing.
Well, it's terrible. I'm getting yelled at. See, now you're getting me in trouble. At Wyatt Reed 13, Telegram. Guys, go follow Wyatt Reed. Wyatt, what else you got going on? Anything new?
I'm trying not to. I don't know. I should announce this. I'm moving over to a new position. I'm leaving Sputnik. Y'all will hear about that in the next week or so. So stay tuned. I'm moving to a independent outlet that many of you I'm sure are familiar with. If you want to keep up with me in the meantime, follow me here, Twitter primarily. I also do stuff over here on Telegram, although I'm less active. And appreciate y'all for having me on again. And I'm sorry for being sad about the Russian tourist guy.
No,
it
it
bums
listen,
me out, man.
Huh?
It just bums me out.
No, it bums me out too. I didn't want to make fun of him at all. I just thought it was interesting that they were mummifying the shark.
It is weird.
It's kind of weird why they would do that and stuff. But you know,
Yeah.
and I really, to tell you the truth, more than anything, I just wanted to find a place where I can show that shark bringing the turtle.
Oh Jesus!
I thought that was amazing.
Is it even a shark? It's like a.
It was the shark that brought the turtle to the
AI-translated
boat.
Chinese video. It's like, and they keep talking about the turtle is so emotional. Look at him crying. Like that's what sea turtles do if you take them out of water. Their eyes secrete liquid because they need to hydrate. It's normal.
Yeah.
They just do that.
People are asking questions about where you're going in the chat. So, by the way,
Where
yeah.
I'm going? Hey,
Yeah.
well, I don't know. It would be great to cover these Guatemalan elections. I don't know how you're feeling on that. I'll definitely touch base with you off camera about an interesting candidate named Edmund Mullet, who is a very, very kind of U.S. backed figure. He spent years and years lecturing at the Foreign Service Institute in the United States, which is, of course, very closely linked with the State Department. He actually served on the OPCW and was placed on there in 2017, right before the bizarre, basically cover up of the fake news scandal where they manufactured evidence to falsely blame the Syrian government for a nerve gas attack. He popped into that just before. He was also appointed to head up the UN mission in Haiti in the early 2000s. So a very strange candidate. If we end up talking about Guatemala or going there soon to cover the elections, that's certainly on my radar. If not, maybe we will catch up in Nicaragua in July. But we'll see where all this stuff takes us. But it's always good to be on with you, Pasta.
Yeah, I heard you weren't coming to Nicaragua in July, so that's
Oh, we'll see. We'll see.
make a surprise visit. Dude, I'd love to go Code Red. Let's go. Red team go, red team go. Let's just get on a plane and go to Guatemala for a couple days and see what's going on there. Maybe get some
I don't know. I
footage.
think it's a little more expensive, but I'm not sure. I've never actually been to Guatemala, so we'll see. And we
Gloria's
should
been to
definitely catch up
Guatemala
with
quite a bit. She says it's pretty easy to get in, pretty easy to get out.
that. Okay.
And it's just very interesting what's going on there right now.
Yeah.
And thank you to everybody in the chat, by the way, who helped out. And on Rockfin, there is a tip. It says, Wyatt, what's up with the Ukrainian strippers? See, they want to know about strippers. No more strippers, no more sharks. We're not talking about any of that stuff.
I don't know. Ask the strip club owner. What was the place called in Vegas? It's like a notorious strip club. They always do really kind of grody shit like that.
It's by downtown Vegas.
Little dancers.
I totally forgot.
I can't remember.
But they have a big old sign,
building.
Ukrainian strippers, now accepting applications for Ukrainian strippers. Pasta, what I was saying on Hardlens was let's not ask the state for permission. Let's just take back our friggin' elections, our effing elections. That's true. I'd like to do that. Me and Wyatt, we witnessed actual free, fair, and transparent elections abroad. It's not that hard. I mean, would you agree, Wyatt? It wouldn't be that hard to pull off that same system in Nicaragua that we saw over there, to pull it off over here?
It would be hard because of all the people who would try to stop you from doing that. That's what would make it hard. But to actually, have a basic voting process like that, no, it's not hard. Countries with 1/100th of the GDP of us do it all the time and pretty successfully. So no, it would not be. Voting does not need to be like some bizarre, inscrutable wizardry that you need some Nate Silver type to explain to you. It's actually a pretty straightforward concept. The person gets the most votes wins. But
you do everything in front of the public, transparent. Right. You count them in front of the public. You vote in front of the public. You have designated spots. You do it on a holiday. You make it efficient. You get results that night. It's very, very easy to pull off. It's a shame that we can't do it here. Wyatt Reed, we love you, man. I know we'll have you back on. Talk about other things. Apologize, please, Pasta.
Please.
To the Turtle Fairy.
Yes, thank you.
I apologize.
I will leave once you apologize. I need to hear an apology before I can sign off to the Turtle Fairy, the crying Turtle Fairy. Fine. I'll apologize to myself. That's okay. Sorry, Wyatt. I had to watch
Let's get out of here, guys. All the links are down below. At 4 o'clock on Rumble and Rockfin Only, we'll be talking with James Guski about The Who. I got to go on Dr. Wilmer and Garland show today, so I got that going on. If you guys want to go see the Cornel West interview with RBN, that's around 3:15 today on Easter time. So there's a lot of stuff taking place. The day hasn't ended and only got started. Wyatt, thank you so much for coming on. Great analysis with BlackRock and Ukraine. We love the articles you write. We read them here all the time, and we'll have you back on to talk more of these things. We'll stay away from sharks. We'll stay away from Ukrainian strippers. We'll see you guys later. Cheese slice on the 1s and 2s. Let's get on out of here, guys. Combo out.